Welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. It's a resource thousands of children depend on throughout the school year: free school breakfast and lunches. Access to free lunch and breakfast feeds over 800,000 students statewide. However, funding for the federal school lunch program may expire this June, leaving many children hungry. Joining me to discuss the importance of preserving free school meals is Naim Walcott from New York School Nutrition Association. Naim, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the federal school lunch program?
Yes, so the federal school lunch program is essentially a program in the federal government that reimburses students or reimburses school nutrition programs for each meal that they serve to children. Uh, those meals have to meet certain nutritional criteria. The procurement of the foods, the paper goods, all of that is under strict regulation. And that it's overseen in New York State by the New York State State Education Department currently.
Now, how has this program been essential to public schools across the city?
Well, essentially, they are doing exactly what it sounds like. They're allowing students to come in, get a breakfast, a lunch, in some cases after school snack, depending on what uh, parts of the program a district might be participating in, at no charge. They're able to get one breakfast and one lunch. What this does is it takes money and financial status out of the feeding of children. It takes away the social stigma of going into the line. And really, it's really kind of like an equity issue. It's across the board, fair for everybody. School lunches are literally the most super or over-regulated meals that a child's going to have. They're literally the healthiest meal that a kid's going to get on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I feel like this kind of highlights another issue, which is food insecurity. And that issue has garnered a lot of attention in recent years, especially since the pandemic. How will the closure of this program contribute to that?
Well, it's a big deal. For example, I believe on April 12th, Mike Winters on CNBC just posted an article stating that food prices have gone up. I believe it's 8.8% in the past 6 months alone. We're already experiencing gas price increases. I know that there's some legislation trying to bring that down, but the bottom line is American families are paying more everywhere, and food insecurity is impacting them. Not only do we not want students to have to try to pony up for meals in the school environment, we don't want to have the entire stress or anxiety aspect of going in. And now, a good way to put this is New York has a anti-shaming policy for school meals. So for 2 years, there's been no money needed to get a school lunch. So now all of a sudden, if we repeal this, to my point, you're going to now be able to identify the students that have money and those that don't, and it's going to be glaring obvious.
Now, what could the aftermath of this look like? Now, I'm imagining, will schools just not provide any food to the kids throughout the day if they don't have the money to pay for it?
No, no schools and school nutrition programs will ensure that children uh, get fed. That would be that's my imagination. Um, where this goes is those meals cost something. They cost something for the labor. They cost something to procure and produce those meals. And what's not known is that school nutrition programs are not funded by a district's general fund. They're funded by selling school lunch. So when we're talking about these universal meals, what we're seeing is, okay, yes, we're being reimbursed by the state and federal government in order to provide those meals. Uh, Once we take that away, and we're still providing the meal, these programs are going to need financial assistance in order to continue to buy food and continue to pay for the labor required to produce it.
Now, if the funding is cut, as I mentioned earlier, this will leave over 800,000 students statewide without the option for free breakfast and lunch. Do you know of any resources available to help families who can't afford just to pay for lunch or school lunch daily?
Well, other than programs like WIC programs, um, and unfortunately shelter programs, to my knowledge, school nutrition and school uh, the National School Lunch Program in a school district is by far the best and the gold standard for feeding children. Not only is every program that is receiving those reimbursements following the federal meal program waivers, but they're following the nutritional guidelines for that as well. So anything less than that um, puts a student at a loss. And if you're equating that, when you're talking about breakfast and lunch, you're talking about all the key ingredients to a healthy diet, from whole grains, protein, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, low-fat milk. Those are big deals for a child. And I don't know of any programs that provide uh, quite the blanket and meet all the targets the way school nutrition does.
Now, there are so many moving parts, and I think that everyday people tend to think that it's the school that's doing this, and they don't know who's actually responsible. Can you just tell us who's responsible for this type of funding?
Who's responsible? So the funding is essentially coming from the state and the federal government. Most of that is from the federal government. The federal government also assists school nutrition programs by doing things like direct diversion and brown box. These are methods to bring the cost of foods down by teaming up with manufacturers and distributors um, to make sure that we're able to keep doing what we're doing in the most cost-effective manner possible. I don't know if I answered your question.
Now, can you tell me who are the people who will be most affected by this?
Okay, yes. Most effective. Right now, it's going to be students, and it'll be students coming to the food service lines. But also, that's who's impacted. This is the food service workers. The food service workers, again, everything in school food is paid for by selling school food. So that money is going to the salaries of the food service workers. That money is going to custodial staff that might be in the kitchen. That money goes to equipment in the kitchens. It goes to everything from paper goods to the actual food that's being produced. So from soup to nuts, it's the labor and everybody that depends on these jobs is going to be impacted. But it's also, and primarily, it's going to be the students that are coming in and experiencing a different or a tiered type of experience at the lunch lines.
Now, I guess switching gears a little bit, can you tell me how is access to a nutritious meal at school beneficial to a child's learning environment?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have the studies offhand. I apologize, but there are numerous studies that basically state that a well-fed child performs better. They perform better cognitively. They perform better socially. They perform better athletically. Um, they're able to concentrate more. They have more energy to do the things that is required of them. Um, yeah, just across the board, good nutrition. You put good things in, you're going to get good things out, and we see that uh, in its impact on children.
Now, federal waivers are set to expire June 30th of this year. Do you think there's actually enough time to combat this?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We have seen our state government and our federal government respond very quickly to various challenges and various priorities that have been put in front of them. And I don't see why feeding children, American children, um, would be any different. The waivers expiring is going to impact a lot of families. Any family that's got a child, any community that's got children in their district, it's going to be impacted by this. Um, so it's vitally important.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about your organization?
Sure. So I am part of the School Nutrition Association, which is the national platform, but I'm served as the vice president of the New York State School Nutrition Association. And what we are and what we do is we basically are the advocacy arm of child nutrition. We want to be the informational hub and resource hub for this industry. We've done everything from partnering with our industry partners, manufacturers, farm to school advocates, and that touches all the way to farmers in New York State to not only support the previous governor's proposals, but to get those New York State products and produce into schools and make them as possible, but also by bolstering our local economies as well. The New York State School Nutrition Program has been essential in some of the legislation actions that have come across the plate. Everything from backing the New York initiative to getting an additional 25 cents from the state to help fund meals for children.
Can you quickly just let everybody know how to access your social media?
Yeah, I mean, you just go to, you can go onto our website, which is the New York School Nutrition Association, and there are links there and information there from everything from YouTube, I believe we're on TikTok. I'm not sure on that. So, but yeah, all of our social media can be accessed through our webpage at the New York State School Nutrition Association.
All right, Naim, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.